Whew. And welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Bears Brothers Podcast, and welcome to our Bears Cardinals postgame show. The final whistle just blew a few moments ago, and our Bears came back to beat the Arizona Cardinals 16-14 in a game that had me worried for pretty much the entirety of the 60 minutes. But luckily for our Bears, they found a way to win it despite numerous issues on offense. The defense really kind of had this team's back in the second half. And the Bears, after this, of course, they improved to 2-1, which is the first time they're over 500 since September of 2014. And even maybe in better news, the Bears are now at sole place of the NFC North first place for the first time since week 16 of 2013, which was 1,729 days ago. Not that I'm counting, but we're here to break down the Bears win. I'm Russell DeWitt, and help me break down this game. I am currently joined by just one Bears brother, Nicholas Moriano. Brandon Hazlett is experiencing some internet issues. He may or may not be back as we kind of get going here throughout the show. But Nick, if you had to summarize this word in just a sentence, what would it be?
Oh man, it's tough. One sentence or one word?
I said sentence.
You did say sentence. It was this game came down to the end, basically. That's how I would describe it, and that's exactly what ended up happening. It's like you said, you started off the podcast perfectly. Whew, that's exactly what I did when we joined the podcast earlier, and that's how it should be.
That's exactly. I mean, yeah. I mean, I was sweating bullets, like I said, for the majority of that game, and good teams find a way to win the games they're not supposed to. There are a couple times in this game that I really thought the Bears were just trying to find ways to throw it away. I think the defense thought otherwise, but let's go ahead and just jump right into our opening drive and the first quarter of our show, and let's begin with this week's monster moment. And my monster moment this week is going to be Cleo Mac's strip sack, right? I mean, well, that wasn't a sack, but the forced fumble right there on Sam Bradford. That big play, of course, led to the points that was the 16-14. So even though it wasn't a touchdown after points, it still was the 3, enabling the Bears to get up by these 2 points, and the defense held on the rest of the way through. I had a few different monster moments throughout, but I think Cleo Mac's one. Obviously, that gave the Cardinals the kind of the motive to move on from Bradford, throw Rosen in the game as well, which of course could have altered how this game kind of shook out. But for me, Cleo Mac yet again steps up when the moment arises, come away with a big play, and it was a big one. The Bears came away with the win after putting points up after that turnover, and that's why it's going to be my monster moment. And usually we're going to hand over to Brandon for a stat, but he hasn't came back yet with the internet. So Nick, I'm going to go ahead and skip that for now. Do you have a knack or a knock? Because a game like this, you really could go either way.
Yeah, and I was just I finally went with it. I'm going to go with a knack, and I'm going to actually give it to the Bears secondary players in that second half. You had Eddie Jackson getting an interception, Sherrick McManus, and Bryce Callahan there at the end. This is a unit that people are saying need to step up a little bit, even though Prince Amukamara had that game-winning pick 6 last week. I think they really stepped up this week against a depleted Arizona Cardinals team with Bradford, Rosen, whoever it was at quarterback. They really stepped up to the matchup and played pretty well. So those Bears secondary players really get the knack for this win.
Excellent. And Brandon said he did throw it in the chat here before he left. It's going to be the number 4, which was all the turnovers that the Bears defense found a way to create came in the second half. And even better, they all came in a row because after the Bears gave up that second touchdown of the day when they went down 14-zip, it was they forced a punt, a 3-and-out, and a 3-and-out, then halftime. And then they come out after the break, interception, fumble, interception. That's really great. That's really remarkable. And it's funny because when the Bears went down 14-0, all the jokes on Twitter are like, oh, the Bears are just obviously trying to do a comeback like they did on Monday night against the Cardinals way back in 2006. Well, I mean, it wasn't as miraculous with the defense, of course, came up in the same kind of way, same manner in which they did in that game to kind of give the Bears an opportunity to come away with the win. And of course, they did it. And Nick, over to you. What's the lowdown? How did the Bears come away with this victory? What's the specific reason? Is it just the defense just holding down the fort here in the second half?
I think so, because this was not a good performance by Mitch Trubisky, and we'll get into that later. But it was just a defense that after the first, I think it was 2 drives for, or maybe first 2 or 3 drives for Arizona, they scored those 2 touchdowns, and that was it, really. That Arizona Cardinals offense could not get going, and Vic Fangio figured it out. They were able to get pressure, able to stop the run in David Johnson, able to just, get Bradford off his game. The receivers didn't really get open. So that's basically what it was. They gave up those 2 initial touchdowns. And then ever since then, it was just Bears defense all the way.
I see Brandon has popped in. B, can you hear us? That's not a good sign. All right. So as we kind of keep going, I believe, like Nick, you mentioned, that's exactly why the Bears were able to come away with this victory. So let's go over now. I think Brandon's here again. I'm going to give him one more chance. Can you hear us, Mr. B? That's a no. We're going to move on from Brandon today. Brandon, we'll see you later on in the week. Nick, how about you? Do you have an MVP? We need to handle those out.
Oh, an MVP. You know what? I do. I'm actually going to give this one. I'll give it to Cleo Mac again. I mean, I know that's someone that can always win it each and every week, but for your monster moment, that was a big drive for the Bears, just not allowing the Cardinals to get any points on that drive, even though they were in Bears territory with that fumble on Bradford and really changing momentum of that game. That deserves it. Mac is he's a monster. He really is. He makes everyone around him better. And I'm glad that he is a Chicago Bear because, man, he is just wreaking havoc on opposing quarterbacks. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with Khalil Mack as my MVP.
I think Cleo Mac's a consensus one, which it's been a running joke now for the early part of the season. You can do it each and every week. What about Sherrick McManus? Can we give it to him for the interception? I mean, he hasn't had one since 2010 when he played for the Texans, and it's been such a long time for him. And he's someone who we kind of overlook as a defensive back on this roster. He's someone who we kind of look as a core special teams player. But when he comes away with a big interception like he did today to jump that route, come away with the football, and of course, another turnover that led to some Bears points, which in a game like this, when you only win by 2 and you miss a field goal to start off this game, every single point matters. And that's why, the Bears were on the right side of it due to Sherrick McManus. So honestly, you can give it to him. You can give it to Cleo Mac. Eddie Jackson as well, but the reason I wouldn't give it to Jackson as much is because even though it was a great interception, and we'll talk about that later on, but more times than not, teams look at that as like a punt because it was so far down the field and it was third down. But McManus gave the Bears the ball back in plus territory, and the Bears, I was hoping they were going to come away with 7, only came away with 3. Seems like the consensus of the day. We'll talk about that when we talk about the offense. But for me, I'll give it to Sherrick McManus because I think he deserves some love here on the Bears defense. All right, well, that's going to do it for the first quarter of our post-game show. And before we enter the second quarter and break down what the Bears offense did today, I need to call a timeout and tell you about our show sponsor, SeatGeek. Football is back, and SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every game all season long. Whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out, or need to find a perfect gift, SeatGeek can help you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's something quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. As you know, the Bears brothers have the SeatGeek apps on our phone and our devices. By far the easiest way that we've been able to search for tickets. There's a lot of features that I like. Either it be their email newsletter that can send you updates about events happening in your area, or lately their app, after I get an update, they now send you notifications about teams that you follow, about price drops. So then like, hey, the prices are lower. Maybe I should buy these tickets now. It's a really neat feature that they have in that app. And on top of that, if you're actually looking for tickets, you can sort by value. That way, you know that the tickets that you're looking for are definitely the most worth it. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. And of course, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. And right before the game today, we had some time since it was another late kickoff, and I was checking out some tickets for the Bears game down in Miami. You saw the game today on TV, at least most of you did, and you saw just how many Bears fans traveled all the way down to Arizona for this game. And I'm excited because down in Miami, we're going to this game. I just got my hotel and everything booked. My flight's been ready. We have the tickets now for a few months, and we're going to be joined by 40 to 50 Bears fans for this game. And if you're looking to travel to a Bears game this year, I encourage you to check out this game because we're going to have a great group of guys there, and I would love to meet you as well. So definitely check out the Bears-Miami game on SeatGeek. And the best part of all, if you're looking for this game, our listeners get $20 off that first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code BEARS today. That's promo code BEARS, BEARS, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. All righty, you're listening to the Bears Brothers podcast. I'm your host, Little Wit. I'm joined by my fellow Bears brother, Nicholas Moriano. Brandon Hazlett is bumping in and out of this hangout as we're trying to figure out his audio difficulties / internet issues. But regardless, we're here breaking down this Bears victory, 16-14 against the Arizona Cardinals, and it's time to dive in to our discussion on the Bears offense. And Nick, after all that monologuing, I need a sip of water, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you have some general thoughts you want to kick it off with?
Yeah, this was I don't think it was a very good performance by the Bears offense. And I think I had that coming into this game because this is a underrated Cardinals defense. So coming into this, I wanted to see Mitch Trubisky, elevate his play. Matt Nagy's play calling a little bit better. And I don't know if I essentially saw that today against the Arizona Cardinals. Mr. Trubisky, 24 for 35, 220 yards, 1 interception, no touchdown passes, 73.5 rating. Not the best stat line. And then again, Matt Nagy's play calling. How many screens did we see in this game, whether it was a first down, third down? That just seemed like the go-to play to try to get yardage. And it kind of gets a little repetitive. We saw a lot of screens when Mark Trestman was head coach, and, it worked at first, but teams adapt. Matt Nagy's throwing the same thing out there with these screens, maybe different personnel. The best one he used was with 2 tight ends, the Sims and Broniker blocking for an Anthony Miller. So repetitive there. We still need to see these guys develop, but Mitch Trubisky specifically, and I guess we'll talk about him in a little bit, needs to get better because he did not have a good showing today.
Yeah, and it's not just the play calling too. I think one of my disappointments out of, Coach Nagy today has to be that timeout usage, especially in the second half, because, he used 2 timeouts before 2 field goals, which is unusual to say the least. Nick, were you as perplexed as I was?
Oh yeah. As soon as that happened, I put in my notes, like, why does he even do that? I mean, on the one play where they are trying to go for on 4th down and just, they don't even get to the line of scrimmage to try to draw the defense offside, burn a timeout. Like, what is the reasoning for that? That was a little strange though, especially because it made no sense.
Yeah, no, it's almost like he was second guessing himself out there. Like, the one I don't understand, but they were down there in the red zone. They called a timeout. They went out there. They kind of showed their hand a little bit. Then Arizona called their timeout, and then of course that's fine. But when you do it and then you bring your offense out, and then you're like, call a timeout, and then bring it right back on. Just kick the field goal, get the points. Like, if you're second guessing yourself in the first place, just go with the points, move on. But unless you're 100% confident on your 4th down play call, I want to put them in a position. And maybe he wasn't, which maybe in retrospect, he made the right choice, but still how he kind of went about it. The timeouts is something that needs to be cleaned up moving forward. Anything else about the general scope of this offense before we kind of get into the, position specifics?
I think we saw a little bit heading in the right direction with the utilization of Trey Burton. He did have a little bit better day than he has in the past. Obviously, he had his touchdown last week, but just him at least getting the ball, at least getting the targets, at least that was a little bit better today, and he was able to have some production in the air. So I think I do like that aspect of this offense as it constantly progresses throughout the season.
No, exactly. It was one of my keys to the game that someone outside of Allen Robinson needed to step up, and I was really looking at Trey Burton because he was averaging less than like 20 yards per game, which for a guy who, with all the hopes and aspirations that we have kind of built around this offseason, averaging less than 20 yards a game is really underperforming, to say the least. So for him to come out in a big way today, we can talk about him a little bit more when we talk about the tight ends. But yes, I was very pleased with what I saw. Nick, I want to know, in terms of third downs today, the Bears were 5 of 14, which is well below 50%. And on the year, throughout the first 2 games, this Cardinals defense gave up about 50%, which is like the 5th most in the league. But they really had the Bears number today on third down. And I do think a big part of it was, especially early on, I think after the first 3 drives, they averaged 13 yards to go on third down. So they were, behind the sticks, which of course, with someone like Trubisky, who has struggled, especially on third down with pressure in his face, that's not an ideal spot to be on. But besides that, or maybe just build upon that, why did the Bears struggle on third down today?
I think Matt Nagy also has to do a better job, especially on third down, even when they're behind the chains. The defense is going to blitz, especially a young quarterback. The Bears seem like they just didn't have that hot route. They didn't have someone to go in the vacated spot where the blitz came from to where it would be an easy completion. I know Trubisky, the interception that he threw, that's exactly what the Cardinals did. They brought the blitz. He doesn't get the ball over it, which we can still talk about later with Trubisky, but I think that's where Matt Nagy needs to get better. Where to diagnose where maybe a blitz can come from and exploit that zone that maybe a defender left, so then you can pick up those easy yards, because not every time a team blitzes are you supposed to get to the quarterback and it's going to be a successful play for the defense. Offenses can adapt to that. I want to see Matt Nagy as a play caller adapt to that, because teams are blitzing Trubisky to see how he will handle it. So that's what I want to see, especially on third downs, regardless if they were, maybe a 3rd and 5, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. Get better when the defense is bringing the blitz.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing I was at least fond about this Bears offense today was, despite the fact that they were down, 14-0, they didn't have, and this goes 2 ways, but I liked it today in terms of I won't say they lacked urgency, but they didn't rush things out there. They didn't go out there and just, have to take a deep shot, have to take a deep shot, take a deep shot, and then end up punting. Like they ended up establishing, a handful of drives. Now, of course, they struggled in a red zone, unable to put points up on the board, but they were still able to establish drives, take their time, run their offense. They didn't panic, and they didn't kind of want to tailor, into the hands of the Cardinal. I'm going to do that all night. The Cardinals defense. So for me, despite being down early in the first quarter, down 2 scores at that too, the Bears' ability to not really rush things, kind of stick true to their game plan, I think is a reason why the Bears came out with the victory today. Nick, anything else about this offense as a whole before we move on to quarterback?
I liked how just another note here that they just committed to the run. Jordan Howard had 24 carries. Tariq Cohen had 5. Mitch had 2 on those QB scrambles there. But yeah, they committed to it. And that's what the Bears need to do, because when Jordan Howard gets going, the team gets going. That offense can move the ball a little bit. So even though they were down at 1.14-0, they didn't abandon the run. I know that was preached in the telecast today, but the Bears, committed to it and kept on doing it throughout the game. And, you would like to see in the fourth quarter, get a first down with Jordan Howard, but the Bears end up winning this game. So, but you would like to see them improve upon that.
Yeah, I mean, he moved the 6, plenty of times tonight, which is good. It's huge. It's something they haven't even really tried to do throughout the first 2 games. But no, you mentioned it. 24 carries for Jordan Howard today. So that means the Bears now improve throughout his 2 and in the beginning of his 3rd year. They now improved to 9-2 when Jordan Howard has 20 plus carries. So it just seems like a simple game plan when you put it that way. Obviously, there's a little bit more that goes into it, but still 9-2 when Jordan Howard has 20 plus carries in his young career here in Chicago. But Nick, let's just go ahead and dive right down with Trubisky. Really tough game to watch for the most part. I mean, he had a lot of missed opportunities out there, a few missed throws, some poor reads, some poor pocket awareness as well. And I'm throwing all the negatives out there, and I want to get to those. But first, can you at least give some of our listeners a positive? Is there a silver lining somewhere out here?
The thing is, Mitch, when he sets his feet, has the right protection in front of him, is able to diagnose a play, which he's still difficult, having some difficulties with. He can deliver an accurate ball. You see the little touch throw to Allen Robinson on the right sideline. You see that throw to, what was it, Trey Burton on I think it was running out or rolling out and then hits him on the sideline as well. You see the accuracy there at times. You see these good plays at times. You see when he's able to escape the pocket. But there's just too much bad that you remember more so than the good. So, I mean, it's not like Trubisky. Well, see, the thing is, you go from week 2 to week 3, he took steps backwards to me in this game. So, but he can make throws. He can make them. But we need to see more consistency with him having those good plays rather than the bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, his best throw of the day was that 39-yarder to Allen Robinson down the sidelines right between the 2 defenders. I mean, that was the highlight for Trubisky today. But I think the low light, it just kind of compounds upon itself. I mean, it started off okay. He kind of, one of the first plays at this very first drive, he saw a blitz. He was able to roll away from it, find Jordan Howard along the sideline. Great. But the Bears down in red zone, 3rd and 6, he runs back 17 yards and takes the sack, which if he would have just stepped up or at least got down, limit the damage, I think the Bears would have, again, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have a time machine. I can't go back in time. You have to believe at least the chances are improved that Parkey hits that first field goal of the game, which could have changed the entire complexion of how this kind of game shook out. But instead, it gives him a longer opportunity in which Parkey misses. You know how the rest goes. But how does he respond? Well, he responds with a fumble. It gives the Arizona the football at the 21-yard line. That leads to points. Following drive, he and Jordan Howard kind of stumble into one another. But that was actually, this is the play you're talking about with Trey Burton. That was the one they kind of stumbled into one another, but then he kind of makes up for it because he was able to get his momentum, set his feet again, and then he found Burton for a 25-yarder to get that first down. And then the bad comes back. Especially he missed 3 balls that were in the end zone that could have been 6. Gabriel, wide open, deep pass. Robinson in the middle of the field in the end zone, had a step, just missed it. Then it was a really odd play call where they had 4 wide receivers at one side, Robinson by himself on the left, and then he throws a fade, but it was not even anywhere close where Robinson could have came down with that football. So a lot of missed opportunities today for Mitch. So I know I just kind of went back into the negative, which I'm not trying to be. I just want to kind of break down the good and the bad. Where do you want to take this conversation with Trubisky today?
The thing is, what I want Trubisky to really improve upon, and just because the whole entire offseason was catered to Trubisky, is gaining weapons, is giving those weapons opportunities to make plays. With that play you were just talking about, they have four wide receiver, four guys on the right side lined up, and then you have Allen Robinson on the left side. That ball was just too high for Allen Robinson to go get. Give him an opportunity to catch that ball. That's what you want to see. There's these overthrows and where you're not even giving your guys a chance to go get those balls because they're nowhere in the vicinity of the receiver. He needs to let his playmakers at least have a chance to make these plays for him, because that's what he's preached all offseason. I'm just going to be the distributor, the point guard, give, my guys the ball. That's what Trubisky has said. Well, we need to see him actually do that. That's the thing. He's not doing that, and that's why he's having the games that he's having. That's why there's this doubt in Chicago. Is he the guy? It's still very early to say that, but you need to see him make those throws, be more consistent with them, give his playmakers a chance to make plays, and then that narrative can maybe change to a more positive one. Because right now, Trubisky's not doing that, and it's becoming, something on a consistent basis. We need to see how he can, adapt and then just give himself better chances to win games and, lead this offense and score more points. That's ultimately what it's all about.
Yeah, we need to see some improvement. And again, we talked about it throughout the season. It's gonna take time. We need to be patient. But when you watch a game, especially like what we did today, sometimes I'm not saying they need to make a change. I think we're the farthest thing from it. I do not want to see Chase Daniel out there, but you just wish you saw just a little bit more at this point. Just some encouraging signs, which, I mean, how he distributed the ball today, maybe that's one of the silver linings. Maybe that's one of the signs. And I mean, look, Trey Burton with the 4 catches and Robinson with 3, Miller with 4, Gabriel 6, and then another, trio with some other guys on the bottom. So yes, he's spreading it around, but the yards per throw, it's down to around 5 today. And eventually I need to see the lid be taken off. He saw some deep shots today, but besides the one that to Robinson that was actually completed, there was another one that was close to being intercepted. A few more where you look like you're just taking deep shots just to kind of keep the defense honest, but they're way out of bounds, so they're not even like within contention. So yeah, just eventually you want to see him start taking these deeper shots down the field. It doesn't even need to be deep shots. This kind of work that intermediate game, range just a little bit more, to 12 to 15 yarder. Nick, do you have a point?
Yeah, just one last thing with Mitch Trubisky. He needs to, whenever he has the ball, needs to take pride, needs to have this mindset where the ball is precious. I'm not going to let this, go into the other team's hands. I mean, obviously he had the interception. He should have had another interception when he threw across his body and that safety comes down, makes a very athletic play. That one deep shot you were talking about to Allen Robinson. There's just all these things. Mitch needs to be, every time he steps out on that field, I should not give this ball to the defense, but it seems like he's a little careless at times. Like, okay, let me run around. You alluded to that sack that he took where he turns around, loses God knows how many yards on that. Needs to be more protective of the football going forward, because last week it was 2 interceptions, another interception, could have been 3 interceptions this game had guys made, caught the ball from Trubisky. But yeah, I just want to see him, take that mindset where, the ball is precious, time, field position, all that stuff. But it just seems like right now, being as young as he is with the new offense, he's just kind of, I don't know, going out there and just doing not whatever, but just needs to be a lot more cautious with the football for sure.
Yeah, and that's something that also goes, both ways. There's 2 sides to every story, but at some point you want to see him take shots, even if it is a little bit of a risk, and hopefully, as long as they're
Calculated.
Thank you, calculated risk. But the fumble, you can't have that. You need to, you need to have that ball tucked, not where the defender can swipe at it. And then when it's on the ground, don't try to scoop it and run with it. Just get down on that ball, because worst case scenario, you can just punt. At least make Arizona, work for those points. Don't give them the ball practically in the red zone. So yeah, times like that, you wish you had a little bit more better ball security out of Trubisky. I definitely agree that he has to do that, especially when you have a defense who plays as well as they've been playing throughout these first 3 weeks. The less you can turn the ball over and just let the defense do what they do, get points when you can. I think more times than not, you're going to be at least in contention of winning some of these ball games as we kind of work through the rest of the season. Let's go ahead and look at who Trubisky had to work with today. We talked about Burton already. Anyone else stand out? I want to talk about Miller, but with the injury thing as well, let's hold that to the end.
Yeah, so because we'll talk about Miller a little bit later. Taylor Gabriel's a guy I think the Bears can. I think they can use him better than what they're using him like right now. A lot of it's a screen game, and yes, he's a guy that if he makes a man miss, he has proper blocking, can definitely take it a small pass, a short pass to, make it a big gain, but I want to see him really stretch the field down vertically. I know Patrick Peterson had, really good coverage on, Taylor Gabriel for majority of this game and when he was lined up on him, but I want to see that, like we've been talking about, you want to see Mitch Trubisky take, I guess, that leash off, and Matt Nagy too, just air it out to Taylor Gabriel. He's so fast. And I mean, I think he's a guy that can get behind a defense. So I know he had what his stats were: 6 receptions for 34 yards, 5.7 yards was the average. So you see these short yardage plays happening. I want to see him be utilized in better ways, not just in the screen game.
Right. And it's exactly what they've been trying to do with him all season long. And there was a missed opportunity today in the end zone with him that would have been a little bit longer down the field. I think more of that. And he's done that a few times so far this year when he can get open down the field. We need to see a little bit more of it. I know the issue, especially with Trubisky, who has struggled with the deep ball accuracy, is the lack of size that Gabriel kind of brings to the table because he is a little bit of a smaller target out there. But still, he's able to get open. And like you've mentioned, I think utilizing him a little bit more effectively instead of just relying him on the screen game, which honestly, it hasn't really worked too much because the other receivers out there haven't been able to block super well in order to kind of give him anywhere to run. It seems like as soon as the ball's in his hands, he has 1 or 2 defenders right around his ankles. And when that happens, I mean, he can break a couple of tackles, but more times than not, he's just going to go right down. So for me, yeah, the same exact thing as you, just kind of use him a little bit more. So yeah, let's talk about Allen Robinson today because, 3 catches, 50 yards. He did have 7 targets today. Were you surprised that Robinson was looked at as much today with Patrick Peterson? Because I saw it on Twitter. Everyone's like, why do you keep throwing it over that way? It's like Patrick Peterson's a really good corner. Why do you keep testing him? Were you surprised or are you fine with it?
Not really, because Mitch Trubisky only being his second year and looking like he's not able to go through his progressions very well right now. I think it's just, okay, let me look to Allen Robinson. That's my guy. That's the guy that I've been throwing to, for the majority of this season so far. So with the targets there, that doesn't surprise me, despite, Patrick Peterson being opposite of him, because Trubisky, look one way, if Allen Robinson's not open. Do I really want to go the second read and maybe, there's a defender right on the backside or whatnot, but it does not surprise me, which is weird because Patrick Peterson is a great corner. But again, I think that falls on Mitch just not being comfortable with going through all the progression still.
Absolutely. And Trey Burton, we talked about him. He was able to come up with a decent chunks today. He had a 25-yard catch. He had a 13-yard catch. The 13-yarder came on the Bears' second drive off of a play-action fake. And if you remember that first drive for the Bears, they really kind of stuck with the running game, really kind of established like, hey, we're going to run it. And then look what happens. He can open up the play-action game, get an easy pickup like he did there with Burton. And then, yeah, so the other one, 25, and Ben Broniker, he didn't have a catch today. But one thing I want to note is that both he and Deion Sims, these 2 tight ends, they had some really big blocks on a bubble screen to Anthony Miller that ended up going for a really long game. So even though the receivers aren't being able to really stick on those blocks, that's why they brought in some of the bigger guys to get the job done over there. What do you think? Is it time to kind of hop on the Miller train here?
I think so.
So yeah, Anthony Miller, he went down early. It looked like a shoulder issue. Went to the tent, came back in. You can tell it was bothering him throughout the game. And then on one play near the end, he kind of did a push off, and then you can tell it instantly was back in pain. I think one of the doctors on Twitter, I don't know his name, so I apologize for not citing properly, but said definitely looks like a shoulder, dislocation, and it's an issue that can last all season. And I agree. And it's something I tweeted a few minutes before because in my life, I've dislocated my shoulder 6 times, and I know exactly how it feels. I know what it looks like when you can't even stand fully straight up because the shoulder's not in place. So he's kind of like hunched down and the arms is kind of dangling. And I fear, and again, not a doctor, we're going to wait for the Bears to kind of give us an update here. But if it slips out a couple times within one game, it seems like it's torn labrum, which remember how that kind of affected Kyle Long when he goes down there and he's an offensive lineman. Imagine what it does for a wide receiver who needs his arms, especially, to do those push-offs to, when you're running full speed, you have to use those arms as well. But if you're wearing like any sort of harness, it's going to limit like your wingspan. So that's not viable. Nick, go ahead.
We got the update. The Bears tweeted out that Anthony Miller sustained a dislocated shoulder. So that's what he's going to be dealing with, like you were saying. But now this creates this, not a void, but now the next man up mentality, right? So you saw a little bit of Josh Bellamy go into the game once Anthony Miller went down. Kevin White was in there. I think the one play I distinctly remember was a block in the back, but he didn't get penalized because Cody Whitehair had a chop blocking penalty on that play. So I guess White gets off the hook. Not really. But now another guy needs to step up. And we've seen Trubisky go down. Robinson feel comfortable with that. He's obviously comfortable with Gabriel because he's throwing screens primarily most of the time. So now who's the next guy that can, be that viable third option at wide receiver? Is it White, who he hasn't even beat out Josh Bellamy right now. He's getting on the field more than him. Josh Bellamy had a catch in today's game, a little screen up, of course, a screen pass. So now that's what's going to be interesting, especially if Anthony Miller, like you said, this injury could last all season, and we don't know if he's going to miss any games because of it, but it does put a little damper on the wide receiving core because Anthony Miller, I had high expectations for him just because he's such a great player since what we've seen in, training camp at Bourbonnais. So that does, like I said, damper down the maybe expectations for the wide receiving core as a whole, because now another guy needs to step up.
And you got to hope someone does, but real quick on Miller, two things. One, he's a tough SOB because I know for a fact that is not no easy feat. And he ended up 4 catches on his 5 targets for 35 yards, and you can tell he wanted to keep going out there. So he is a competitor, he's a warrior. So just want to kind of give him a shout out for that. But yeah, like you said, it's a blow to this group because he was supposed to be that third guy, that underlying X factor, someone who I thought was going to really develop throughout this season. Not saying he can't. It's going to be much more difficult now with this injury, and we'll see exactly the severity of it, because it could just be a dislocation where it was a clean one, where it was able to get in and back out, and then there's no tear to the labrum, which the labrum is what kind of holds it into the socket. But if that thing's torn, there's nothing you can really do in terms of kind of holding it in there. You can strengthen the muscles around it, but he's already a strong guy. His muscles are already kind of not as strong as they can be, but he's a professional athlete, so they're already pretty ridiculously strong. So if it's already kind of going in and out like it did today, sometimes it can take a couple weeks because the tendons kind of stretch when it happens to retighten back up if there's no labrum air. But we'll see exactly the severity and how that kind of goes. But Nick, you agree it's definitely an issue if this is a long-term, like, who's going to step up? Do you have a hunch on who you think it would be, or who do you want it to be?
Well, maybe we see a Javon Wims sighting now. He has not been active on the 53. So, if Anthony Miller has to miss some time, I would think that Javon Wims would be the next guy who steps up. We'll see how much time he would get in the actual offense, but he's definitely going to be more involved than what he once was, obviously, before the season started. So Javon Wims could be a name that maybe Bears fans might be seeing. So one injury happens, it just leads to another opportunity for another guy, which isn't the worst thing, but you definitely want to see Anthony Miller out there and healthy.
Absolutely. All right, let's kind of transition over to the Bears running game today. And I want to begin with Jordan Howard, because today, the 24 carries, 61 yards with the touchdown. He was able to move the sticks. I wish I had a little counter of how many times, but I know it was at least a handful today, which really kind of helped this offense kind of chug along. But someone who's just looking at the box score, they're going to see the 2.5 average today, which I don't think is a good indicator of his impact. Would you agree, Nick?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 2.5, you see that, like, okay, Jordan Howard must have not had a good game, but in actuality, I think he had an okay game. I liked what he did out there.
What do you think about Tariq Cohen's usage today? Something I was kind of clamoring for a little bit more in the pregame, that I want to see more of Cohen. And today he had 8 total touches in terms. He had 15 yards on the ground, 53 on the ground, 15 through the air. So if my quick math, that's 68 total yards. That's a pretty solid day for your second string running back, right?
Yeah, no, I like that. And, it's 10.6 average for that running for his 5 carries. And that's what you want to see, because Tariq Cohen's a big play guy. Get him out in space and see what he can do, making defenders miss, and just, who knows, like Gabriel, a small play can be a big one with those guys out on the field. But I liked how they utilize them. And I can't wait until the snap counts come out to see, how much he was actually used. It seemed like a little bit more than, his previous 2 times. So, yes, I like where that's also going with the offense. I wish I would have mentioned that earlier. A little bit more utilization of Tariq Cohen. And like I said, I like that average that he had, especially running the football. Those big, almost, a first down every time he touched it. 10.6 yard average there.
I'm just looking at some of the post-game comments coming out of Matt Nagy. He doesn't care that we're in first place. It's a long season. I agree. But as a Bears fan, who I haven't seen this since 2013, it feels good. It feels good. Even if it's, for right now, it's week 3. I mean, obviously it matters at week 17 who's up there, but right now, it feels good for me. But he says that, looking at Trubisky, people just not going to understand that it takes time and that they are going to get this. So he's still preaching the patience, which I understand. That's kind of where he's at right now, and I don't think he's going to kind of change his mantra here after a few weeks. But Nick, offensive line thoughts? Eric Kush, patience running thin?
A little bit. I mean, he made some good plays out there. I'm not gonna just harp on, Eric Kush the entire time to get my guy James Daniels in the game, but I think, I think that change, if the Bears think that it's gonna help improve their running game and the offense as a whole, I think it's gonna come after that bye week, in a couple of weeks here for the Bears. But yeah, I need to go back and watch the all 22 just to see, we can go back that 2.5 yardage where there's some plays where the offensive linemen are just not getting to their blocks. And now that's why Jordan Howard's not able to have a better yards per carry. So that's something I'll have to go back and watch. But yeah, I won't kill Eric Kush today just with all the negative comments, just because I know he made a couple of good ones that stick out in my mind. But, I want James Daniels out there. Yeah, every week I'm going to watch James Daniels out there.
Yeah, I had to at least give you one setup. I think for me, in terms of the offensive line, my big one, Kyle Long, he just looks like he's really back on his A game. I mean, someone who last year, of course, dealt with the injuries, and now he's kind of reminiscent of the Kyle Long that we saw a couple of seasons ago. He's out there leading the charge on some of these screens, some of these outside zone runs, and he's knocking guys down to the turf. He's playing with some attitude, and that's the Kyle Long that we all know and love here in Chicago. And I just wanted to point out that I saw him a few different times throughout. We don't have Brandon, Mr. Trenches, to give us his analysis here. So it's just going to lead us to our final thoughts on offense. So, Nick, I know it's final thoughts, but I want to know between now and Tampa Bay, what's this next step? I know we saw maybe some steps backwards this week, but we also, I think, saw some steps forward, some other people stepping up. But in terms of this week and next week, what do you want to see improved on?
Well, here's the thing. Going into this game, I wasn't expecting much from Mitch. And we've already seen bad quarterback play against the Buccaneers in years past. So Trubisky needs to take care of the football moving forward. And the play calling just needs to get a little bit better from Matt Nagy. Less screens and just attack the field vertically. I know Mitch Trubisky right now, his deep ball, not very accurate, but you got to give him more opportunities to at least try to get that up, because right now it's just not working. And maybe that's why Matt Nagy is reluctant to, I guess, call those kind of plays. And that's why the inconsistencies there, but we need to see him improve. Honestly, this team's going to go as far as, Mitch takes him, but he just needs to not turn over the ball. That will definitely help, especially when you have the defense playing as it is. But Tampa Bay, they're a surprise this year for the NFL. So need to see him improve and just take care of the football going into this next game.
Yeah, couldn't say any better myself. I think, it was a down game. But Nick, you talked about it in our pregame show that this Arizona defense was much better than, the stats indicated, that blowout loss that they had a week ago. And you kind of warned us, they can stand up against this offense a little bit. And I think we saw it today. I think it took the Bears by a little bit of a surprise, but they were able to kind of, they did what they could. They did what they needed to do today, which is fine for tonight. But in the future, they need to do a little bit more, because the defense held Arizona down to 14, but you're not going to hold teams to 14 more times than not. And the Bears, scoring 16, you need more than that. You need more than just field goals, and especially if you're going down to the red zone 3-4 times a game. You need to find ways to capitalize. I think red zone efficiency is what I would work on if I were the Bears. Seems like they haven't had too much issue with moving the ball this season, but once they get down into the red zone, things just fall apart. And it could be on Nagy with his play calling. Sometimes he's getting a little bit too cute. It can come down to Trubisky with his execution. So a combination of those two I like to see cleaned up before next week against Tampa Bay, who's been putting up some ridiculous numbers. So the Bears offense, again, this defense, maybe they'll hold Tampa Bay to a reasonable number, but still the offense is going to need to put up some points for any shot of winning that game. All right, so up next, we're going to enter the third quarter of our show and break down the Bears offense. But real quickly, since it is halftime, I want to ask you, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I just noticed we're getting very close to 4,000 subscribers on the channel, which is really cool. I know before the season, our goal was 3,000, and here we are knocking on the door to 4,000. And when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you get a lot of great bonuses, not really bonuses per se, but a lot of convenience maybe would be a better word, where you get notifications each and every time that we have a live show. It's especially important during our, the season, because we do these live post-game shows where we have 500 people showing up, partaking in the live chat. So if you want to join these hundreds of Bears fans talking about this game, head over to our YouTube channel. And of course, and we're a long way from it, in the off season when our schedule isn't as set, it's a great way to keep up with us all year long. So definitely help us out, reach a goal to 4,000 YouTube subscribers. All right, Nick, let's go ahead and enter our third quarter and begin our, defensive analysis here. And of course, just like the offense, any opening thoughts that you like to have to kick things off?
I was just really surprised, and I actually wasn't able to watch the very first drive of the game because I was just coming back from Iowa, that it was a blown coverage. Arizona went down and scored. very surprising. And then they do that again, another blown coverage, or not a blown coverage. Danny Trevathan was just late on the tight end there, just not getting the proper depth and, having that. But after that, defense just played lights out. And I know you're playing Sam Bradford and an Arizona Cardinals offense that really hasn't done much all season, but the way they played, were able to, just get off the field, able to not allow Arizona to score any type of points, cause turnovers in that second half, was amazing to watch because, like we said, we just talked about the offense and they're still having the struggles. This defense needs to play lights out and not give any life to an opposing offense. And they showed that today. They were able to create 4 turnovers in that second half and just really control the game and win it for the Bears ultimately. So I was really surprised. Again, surprised at the beginning, but I'm not even that surprised at the end because this Bears defense has been playing lights out, and that's great to see.
Yeah, and you can tell they didn't even panic. Like, some bad things happened. They made their mistakes and they moved on. And yeah, you kind of hit it right on the head. But the first drive, they gave up a few really big plays in terms of broken coverages. Like one was like 31, and then one was like 35 yards. And then on the next time, the Bears forced a 3-and-out. Great. How did they counter? Well, Trubisky fumbled, gave the Cardinals a short field, ends up being a touchdown. One play, 21 yards. And then after that, the defense drew a line in the sand and said, you shall not pass. And then for the rest of the game, they pretty much did it. They forced a punt, interception, an interception, a fumble, and then another interception. So the defense literally said, there's no more of that. You're done. You can take your 14 points, be happy with it because that's all we're going to give you. And that's all they ended up giving the Cardinals because they just shut them out due to the great, turnovers. Pass rush kind of started getting, revved up a little bit and sound coverage throughout. So, and I think when we'll talk about who I think the culprit was on a couple of these blown coverages here in a minute, but as a team, they played really well as a unit to kind of, collect themselves, stick to the assignment and get the job done because this is the Cardinals offense that's been very pathetic. And I hate using that word, but it's been true in the first 2 weeks. So for them to come out there and put up 14 points in a hurry, I was like, what in the world? That should not happen. And I think that's exactly what Vic Fangio is telling his guys. Like, that should never happen. I don't know. This is what we did wrong. Let's not do it again because other than that, we're going to be fine, guys. And that's exactly what happened. Anything else in terms of general thoughts? Because it's interesting because it's a game in which they gave up a handful of big plays early and then they just totally, switched the mindset. And from that point forward, shut them down. So there's not a lot to talk about in terms of, what went right, what went wrong in certain instances, because it was pretty much a tale of a couple of drives early and then no more after that.
I think the big thing here, the Bears have seen teams, come back on them, in the end of games. You look at Green Bay, even, in Seattle, it was garbage time, whatever. But I think you could see this defense really just taking ownership. Hey, if we want to win this game, we could do it ourselves. So whether it's, obviously they didn't score any points on this game if Cleo Mac didn't jump off sides, Ajax had a pick 6, but the defense is really just owning that mentality that they can close out games by themselves. And obviously it was a good opportunity against an Arizona Cardinals offense that, like you said, has been pretty pathetic so far this season. They're really taking ownership of that, and that's great to see because we've seen defenses win games by themselves for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, you want offensive help, but they're really taking the ownership of being that team, that defense that can just win a ball game.
I think I'm just kind of browsing through the plays here. I just want to make sure that I'm correct, but I'm 98% sure, so I'm going to give it to myself, that the Bears defense only gave up 1 third-down conversion in the second half of this game, which, I mean, when you have interception, fumble, interception, of course. But only 1 third-down conversion in the second half. Nick, what does that tell you about where this defense is at? And again, I know the Cardinals came in this game very poor on third down, but they started off converting their first couple.
That tells me, especially Vic Fangio, now being in his 4th season, the guys that are out there really trust one another because in third down situations where offenses are going to maybe try to run rub routes or trying to run a whole bunch of different, plays just to try and get whatever yardage is basically needed, these guys need to be in their proper assignments. Danny Trevathan needs to get everybody lined up. That pass rush needs to be there. So you're seeing all that happen, especially on the most important down for the Bears defense on third down to get their defense off the field. So that's what that shows me. Vic Fangio's unit is really coming together. And it's great to see these guys, even like some guys had some hiccups and we'll talk about it later. But despite that happening, this defense is doing its job to get off the field on third down.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and just dive into these positions here. And let's begin with the defensive line. I think a great place to start is Akeem Hicks. The end of the day with the 3 quarterback hits. He had the strip sack on Bradford, and he just came in there very viciously, swatted at the ball, came right out. Now, obviously, the Bears didn't pounce on that football, but it was still a good momentum swinging play early when the Bears defense was on their heels a little bit to kind of reestablish the tone, kind of, tell that Arizona front, like, no, we're coming now. Like, we're coming now. These quick throws, these easy ones that you kind of got with some blown coverages, they're over. So for me, Akeem Hicks, he had a really decent day overall with the 4 tackles. He had, like I mentioned, the sack and 3 quarterback hits on the day. I mean, Akeem Hicks, when you kind of put 3 different guys on Cleo Mac to try to slow down Cleo Mac and leave Hicks one-on-one, he's going to have a really decent day. And I think for the most part, he did. What about you, Nick?
No, I mean, Akeem Hicks comes to play each and every week, and it's great to see because he was the most disruptive pass rusher on the Bears last season. Now you had a Cleo Mac that just elevates his play, which is insane to say. But you want to see him have a better second half of the season than he did last year. But another guy that I really liked, and maybe it's just the one play that stands out.
Yeah, it better be the one play.
It's Bilal Nichols, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a fantastic play, especially when the Bears needed that to happen. Just it was a crucial part of the game, late in the game, but the rookie makes a nice move, gets in the backfield, makes a nice tackle. That's what you want to see because we've been clamoring for somebody to be the opposite guy of Akeem Hicks. And Roy Robertson Harris, Jonathan Bullard, to me, had a quiet game, and Bullard had that, I think it was legal hands to the face call. So still, you want to see more production out of them too after having a good week last week. But Bilal Nichols, that play, that's great to see out of your, is it 5th or 6th round pick? Fifth. I want to say 5th. I think it's 5th. But yeah, that's a great play for the young rookie to get on the field in a crucial time and be able to make a play when you're counted on when you're in playing the game. So great for Bilal Nichols.
Yeah, that was a really big 3rd down. I mean, it was 2 down territory, but still, it was a great 3rd down because it was a tackle for a loss that went for -3 to get in there in a hurry, bring down the ball carrier, really forwards, the Cardinals to, especially with Rosen back there, to take a much longer 4th down attempt, and obviously it worked well in our favor. So yeah, I think that play, even if it was just a no gain, kind of changes, how that play call is going to go for both sides. But to knock them back, know that, the Cardinals were going to have to throw this football, which allowed the Bears to send the blitz and put some pressure on Rosen. I think really was an underlying cause of why the Bears were able to kind of stop the Cardinals as they were kind of driving late in this game. So for me, yeah, Nichols, huge.
The next play was actually Bryce Callahan's interception. So on that 4th down call. So there you go, Bilal Nichols.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should say it more confidently. 5th round pick. We know it.
5th round. Yes.
5th round. And Eddie Goldman, it's not like the most eye-popping day, but he had 4 total tackles. And for the most part, whenever Arizona tried to run the ball up the gut, I mean, he was right there to bring him down, just, a big stone wall right here, anchoring this defense. Goldman's continuing to have a really, really strong start to this season. So just another big day out of him. Switching over to linebackers, let's go ahead and start on the outside here. And Nick, I'll let you go ahead and start things off.
Yeah, so I think Leonard Floyd actually had a better day today than he has had in the last 2 weeks. I was able to see him actually get in the back, or not get in the backfield, but just beat those one-on-one blocks. He didn't get to the quarterback, obviously, but you could tell he's able to use his hand with that cast that he has now. Just having that finger movement, it is big for him because he plays with his hands so much and is able to, I mean, that's what he worked on all in camp using, and that's why he was so good in camp, just beating whoever was in front of him. So I thought I saw a better day out of Leonard Floyd there. And I mean, do we need to talk about Cleo Mac? I mean, we could talk about Cleo Mac all day, but
I mean, we can. But
I think he's yeah, go ahead.
I just have one play that I want to mention. I think it's, an underrated play. It's after Trubisky's interception, and the Cardinals were looking to extend that lead. But then he had that sack on Bradford that took him just out of field goal range. So I don't know if you mentioned that when you had your MVB, but I had it here in my notes. I wanted to make sure to kind of highlight that because, it's a sack and it's in the first half, but it's still a sack that took him out of field goal range that enabled the Bears to kind of maintain that, 14 points given up instead of making it 17, which, if my math is correct, 17 is more than 16 that the Bears scored. So a big play by Cleo there. What about you? Anything from Aaron Lynch? It was a little quieter today, but did you say anything?
Yeah, I think it was on that Bryce Callahan interception. He was the guy coming off the right side, or what would be Rosen's left, coming up on that side, collapsing the pocket, and he was right there. Yes, he did have a quieter game, but that's what you want to see out of Aaron Lynch. It can't be Cleo Mac every time. Leonard Floyd will get there when he gets that cast completely off, but that one play, again, huge interception for Bryce Callahan, and Aaron Lynch was right there. If he held on to the ball a second longer or a half a second longer, that ball most likely is on the ground, and maybe the Bears are just getting another turnover instead of the interception, but this being a fumble, obviously.
Yeah. Let's transition inside here, and Danny Trevathan. And here's the culprit that I was talking about. Obviously, he was the one in coverage on David Johnson for that 21-yard touchdown after Trubisky's fumble. But he was also, and again, I don't know the play call here, but it did look like he was supposed to be the one having to pick up Ricky Seals-Jones in that very first touchdown of the day. It looks like he thought that Seals-Jones was going to go inside, so Trevathan kind of went for it, and the next thing you know, Seals-Jones went outside on the corner, and then he was left wide open. It did look like Danny was kind of pointing like, who's back there? So maybe he thought he had some help over the top. But regardless, I mean, he was kind of in the middle, at least both of those touchdowns early. Obviously, things got cleaned up, but I just wanted to point that out in my notes. Do you have anything else on Trevathan, or do you want to talk about Roquan Smith, who I thought for the most part had a really strong game?
Yes, we'll just go to Roquan Smith. I will. You know what? I'll start with the negatives of Roquan, that we can end on a positive. There were a couple of times where I thought he's in position to make a tackle and he just misses it. And we saw that in his first start against Seattle. It was a pass. It was a third down pass to David Johnson. I believe it was a third or second down pass to David Johnson on the left side. Trevathan's on the left. There's another Bears defender in the middle. Roquan Smith's all the way on the right side. And then David Johnson just goes around him. Like, they were in perfect position to make the tackle, not give up the first, but David Johnson ends up getting that. There's another play where Roquan Smith reads it perfectly, just misses a tackle on David Johnson again. So he needs to work on it, but he's at least in position. That's what you want out of your rookie. He's in position to make plays. Now he just needs to finish them, because Roquan Smith, and we saw it in this game, especially just the speed he has out there to cover the flats or come down in the middle to, stuff a hole. It's amazing. So Roquan Smith, he's going to get better with that. Just needs to keep his head up, make the tackle and just finish the play. That's a big thing with Roquan.
Yeah, you hit it really well because he has the speed to really close, anywhere on this field. He had a tackle for loss on David Johnson on a little quick pass on the flat. Was able to close. Great angle to get there. Great closing speed. Got the tackle for a loss. Earlier in the game, he had a good play. They tried pitching the ball out. He took a perfect angle, which undercut a couple of blockers, and it limited that, which looked like it might have busted out for a first down. It only ended up being a 1-yard run. So 2 good plays there by Roquan. And I think the whiffs that you're talking about, it's just evident that sometimes he's a little bit too aggressive, playing a little bit too fast, which, he's fast, but sometimes he needs to learn how to kind of channel that a little bit, square himself, getting up to the ball carrier, make a sound tackle instead of just kind of run right through him, because maybe that worked in the SEC, but in the NFL, guys make moves just a little bit quicker, and that's why you're seeing a couple of these misses. But once he adjusts to that, I think we're going to see some, even better games out of Roquan. I really think brighter days are ahead for our 8th overall pick here in the draft. Anything else on linebackers before we move on to secondary, Nick?
Let's go on to the secondary.
All right, go ahead.
All right. I mean, I'm trying to see how many passes were actually caught by wide receivers. You had 7 from Christian Kirk, and a lot of them came against when Kevin Tolliver was in the game, when Prince Amukamara left.
Yeah, they just kept running the same route over and over and right in front of him.
Yeah, and Tolliver, being a rookie, and especially got beat on the double move, he just wanted to play far off, and maybe that's what Vic Fangio wanted from him as well. So a lot of the underneath went there. You had that. Larry Fitzgerald had 2 catches. Chad Williams had a catch. So the Bears, for the receiver aspect for the Cardinals, they didn't do much. There wasn't a big game out of them, and in part, again, of the entire defense. But the secondary, especially Prince Amukamara when he was in there, lockdown coverage on his guys. And Bryce Callahan, honestly, I gave my MVP to Cleo Mac, but he's also deserving of it as well. He was just on Larry Fitzgerald wherever he went, and that's a hard guy to guard. At just being, even though he is older, still is able to make those moves, get open. But yeah, the secondary played really well. And you saw that Eddie Jackson interception. Comes out of nowhere, but it was like an effortless play. Just kind of catches it and goes about his day. So great to see guys stepping up. And Sherrick McManus, Tolliver, obviously he'll get better. But yeah, the secondary played lights out.
Yeah, and Eddie Jackson too. This is not going to count on the stat sheet whatsoever, but that second interception, that pick 6, they didn't account because Cleo Mac was offsides. It didn't go unnoticed to me, but it took a lot of time off the clock because of how that play kind of extended through, because it went all the way down to 14 seconds, and maybe he should have just jogged a little bit slow. I mean, it all worked out in the end, but I was like, take your time. It's offsides. Don't worry about it. But no, if Cleo Mac's not offsides, that's a ceiling interception right there, which is something that we haven't. Well, we had it last week with the Mukamara, so that would have almost been back-to-back ones for that Bears defense 2 weeks in a row. So even though it's offsides, it's still a good sign there for the Bears secondary. And then, of course, you mentioned Bryce Callahan, not just being in coverage a little bit sticky, but more of that solid open field tackling that we just seen time in and time out for him. Prince Amukamara, he had that really nice pass breakup on third down, which forced the very first 3 and out on the Cardinals' second drive, which kind of showed that this Bears defense isn't going to completely roll over. And then Kyle Fuller, I have nothing to say about him, which is exactly what we need. It's a quiet day.
I was like trying to think, when did anybody even go to his side? I'm really, I don't know if they did. I have no idea. So yeah, if you were gonna ask me what you think about Kyle Fuller, I couldn't tell you anything because, I mean, he did his job. There were no penalties, no balls were caught over there. So yeah.
Hey, after 2 weeks of giving up to 2 touchdowns, which again, great throws, but after 2 weeks of doing that, to have a very quiet day where your name's not even called, I mean, that's great. He ended up the day with 2 tackles. I didn't even hear his name called for those 2 tackles, which is fine. A quiet day from your corner isn't a bad thing. And then what about Mukamara? I want to talk about this hamstring injury real quick. He seemed like he was in good spirits. It seemed like they're being very, precautionary by holding him out. If he has to miss some time, what's your confidence level in, Kevin Tolliver moving forward?
He didn't really show a lot to me in the preseason, and obviously it's a different animal, preseason, regular season. But with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in, you have like Deshaun Jackson, like you have some pretty good wide receivers. And I don't know, with Tolliver being so young, he got burned by a rookie in this game with Christian Kirk on that double move. One of the very few passing plays that actually went well for the Arizona Cardinals. I wouldn't say that I'm very optimistic about what he can do, but the defense will work around it, and Vic Fangio will find a way to, give him a little bit more help as opposed to Kyle Fuller. So I'd rather see, it's weird I'm going to say this, I'd definitely rather see Prince Amukamara out there making plays, because he's been impressing me so far. He really has.
You came around, Nick.
You elevate your play, it gets recognized. Let's just say that.
I think that's a pretty good thing to say. So I appreciate you keeping the open mind here about Prince. All right, it's time for some final thoughts on defense. And mine, it's just going to be the theme that I've echoed throughout, and that's just the resiliency, because they made some silly mistakes early, allowed some easy scores. And like I've already mentioned, they decided like no more, and they stuck to that. And for them to kind of rebound from that kind of shows, because I can see, not myself, but I can see fans watching going, oh, was this defense everything I thought it was in the first 2 games? What's going on? Where's the pass rush? Where's this coverage? How come we're letting the Cardinals, who scored 6 points heading into this game, score 14 points in the first quarter? Like, what the heck is happening? Well, sometimes that happens. I mean, look what the Bills did today. It happens. Yeah. And the Bears, they didn't let that happen to them today. So for that to happen, for the defense to pretty much put the matters in their own hands. When's the last time we saw Bears defense come with back-to-back turnovers on drives? Seriously, it's been who knows how long. I mean, if it's ever, I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I mean, that's reminiscent, and that takes me back to a time of the Lovie Smith defense days with, the Brian Urlacher, the Lance Briggs, the Charles Tillman, those days in the Bears defense. And we've seen that throughout. And today with those turnovers coming up with them, despite a little bit of the bending, I mean, that's all we need. That's really all we need from this defense. Even though they came away with 14 points today, that's fine. I'm fine with it now. Like at first I was very, very upset, but how they kind of responded and flipped the script, I can live with it. What about you? What's your final thought on defense?
Yeah, that's the thing. How they responded after those 14 points, because the Bears know, this Bears defense knows that shouldn't have happened. They scored 6 points all season, haven't given up a touchdown. For them to, allow that to happen to that unit, I think they just took it and we were like, that they're going to have this mindset that's not going to happen anymore. And it didn't. So that's what you love about this Bears defense. They can really get after the quarterback, the hurries, the sacks, the interceptions, the fumbles. This Bears defense is flying around everywhere from the corner all the way to the left defensive end. Doesn't matter. This defense is playing great football right now, and it's only going to get better with the chemistry as it develops and, the new guys getting in there. Even if it has to be a Tolliver, it's going to get better. So it's exciting to watch, because you just know anytime that defense is out there, there could be a chance for a sack, an interception, fumble, whatever it may be. It's really exciting to watch.
I mean, we've been starved, in terms of turnovers throughout the entirety of, our show's tenure, and they actually have it kind of coming now to fruition. It's great. It's a good sign to see, and hopefully it's a pace that they can kind of keep up throughout the rest of this season. All righty, Nick, let's go ahead and enter the fourth and final quarter, and let's go ahead and begin with a quick hit on special teams. And I'll go ahead and begin and I'm going to say it one last time, and I'm probably not one last time because I have a final thought coming up. But resiliency and able to overcome adversity, and that's Cody Parkey. He missed his first field goal today, and he ended up hitting his next three, which I was still a little salty here in the second half when the Bears are kind of chipping away at this lead. I was like, well, they should be leading, or they should be down by one instead of down by whatever they were. But for him to come back and hit his next three, which of course were proved, very pivotal in this game, to kind of, have that short memory, which, as a kicker, that's extremely important, is a good sign. I mean, obviously you wish he was 4 for 4, but sometimes you miss. It happens, and he was able to kind of bounce back from it, just like the defense early on, and have himself a stronger game throughout the remainder of it. What about you, Nick? Anything on special teams you want to hit on?
I just want to maybe make this comment here, but do you think Matt Nagy is actually confident in Cody Parkey? There are times where he's lining up to go for it on fourth down, second guesses himself, then reverts to going for Cody Parkey, allowing him to kick a field goal. Obviously, he misses the first one, rebounds, but I kind of want to see how that plays out, because maybe Matt Nagy's just confident in his offense, or maybe he's got a little bit of doubt with his kicker. But I like how he rebounded, like you said. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question, and I wish I was inside, Matt Nagy's mind to give it the answer. But if I had a guess, I think it's just Nagy trying to prove he's aggressive and wanting to be an aggressive coach, and I think he's overdoing it just a little bit sometimes. And I think that's what we're seeing down in the red zone with some of these hunky-dory kind of play calls when he can just kind of hand it to Jordan Howard and punch it in. So I think he's just trying to get a little bit too cute, and he's overthinking it a little bit. So for me, I think that's more the case, because that's his first miss of the regular season. So, yeah. I mean, there's really no reason not to have confidence in him. I mean, yes, he struggled throughout the preseason, but this year he's missed one. So it was that one. And I doubt that would have really crept in, but who knows? I mean, maybe. But I think it's just Nagy trying to be that aggressive coach that he told us all offseason that he's going to be. But then he second guesses himself and throws him out there in the field. I don't think if he had lack of confidence, he would kind of put him out there. So for me, I think it's just the aggressive mindset. What about you? Do you have a hunch one way or another?
No, I just wanted to see your thoughts on it. It could be a lot of things, but it's just interesting as, those plays were happening. I'm like, man, I know he just missed. I think he made one. And then that play kind of happens. I wonder, what does he think? Does he not think that Cody Parkey's going to make this? Whatever it may be. But like we said, it's only one. And it's nice to see that Cody Parkey, because I remember saying this after the preseason, I just don't feel confident. And now he's really, silenced those, critics and those thoughts. And obviously he misses one today, but rebounds. So it's good to see. I am surprised, though, sticking with special teams, that Tariq Cohen didn't have a better day punt returning the football, just because of what the Arizona Cardinals allowed to happen with the Los Angeles Rams and their punt returning unit. But there were times where Tariq Cohen had the punt, he caught the ball, and I think he was just thinking way too much. Again, everyone's thinking way too much. Just play football and, the grand scheme of things, and just needs to make one cut up field rather than try to set a block up, make another cut, and then turn up field. But I thought he would have had a better game than he did today.
I mean, he only had 2 tries, and one of them was a 21-yarder. I mean, if the Bears defense forced more punts, then we would have saw a little bit more opportunity. But instead, the Bears defense like, nah, we're just going to take the ball right here. We'll come away with the interception. We'll take the fumble. You don't even have to worry about sending your punter out. We're just going to take it now. But no, I understand exactly what you mean, but limited sample size to see exactly how it all kind of pan out. But Nick, do you have your red pen ready? Are you ready to grade this game? What do you got?
I actually do have a red pen. So if I had to grade this game and everything that's happened, only 16 points. I'll give this one. I'll give it a C plus B minus. Honestly, I know they won, and I'm just being critical here, but I had low expectations for Mitch Trubisky coming into this game, but he played worse than what I would have anticipated him. I didn't expect him to have the turnovers, to be so careless with the football. The running game still needs to get going. The defense did give up those early touchdowns, and this to an Arizona Cardinals team that is very good. But you know what? I'll go with the B minus for a final grade, not a C plus. B minus on the grade. They still have a lot to work on, but it was a win. So it wasn't a perfect win, but they still have a lot of things to work on.
All right. I like it. I'm at the B minus as well. That's where I had it. So you had to work your way up into my grade, which it's okay. You can do that. For me, I think the defense, you take out the short field in which they gave up the 7 points, because, I mean, they handed the ball to 21. So they're going to get points regardless. So you had the points there. The very first drive, they made the adjustments since then. After that point, I mean, you have to almost give them damn near an A for all those turnovers, forcing only allowing 1 third down conversion in the second half, is forcing them either to punt the ball or you're going to get a turnover ever since they got those 14 points up on the board. So for me, I mean, you have to give them an A. And then you're looking at the offense and you have to almost give them like a C- because of all the miscues. And yes, they were able to put up some points, enough to win this game, but they didn't find a way to execute in the red zone today. So for the lack of red zone execution in terms, and then of course the Trubisky kind of issues that we saw today with the fumbles, the interception, it still leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I thought we were going to be a little bit further in that. And just real quickly, red zone, got there 3 times, was only able to score a touchdown once. And it's an issue. We've been getting into red zone more than most of the teams in the league. We entered this game 7th in the NFL with 3.5 trips, had 3 more again today, but we're only able to convert on, less like around the third right now, which is where we were today. And it's not where you want to be. You want to at least be converting at minimum 50, but ideally 60% clip. So we're not even halfway there in terms of our red zone efficiency. So for me, it all kind of averages out to that B-, and I'm being generous because we're in first place in the NFC North.
Yeah, very true. And imagine if the offense was playing a little bit better. These grades would be a lot better because it's basically the offense bringing down these grades. The defense has played lights out, except for when we'll look to a week 1, that second half, that fourth quarter, really. But really, these grades would be so much better if the offense was just a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, Nagy was saying that when I was looking at Twitter over here when you were talking a few times that he's like, he can state like the defense is what won these last few games for us. They're like kind of carrying us right now. And they are. And I've seen it in the past where it can work, especially here in Chicago. I've seen that, a Bears team lead a Kyle Orton team throughout the entirety of the season, but Kyle Orton didn't turn the ball over so much. He kind of took care of the ball. So if you want to kind of look at a model, maybe that's it. But I think there's more potential on this offense that we still need to find a way to untap. And right now we're just kind of, stalling, and hopefully things start clicking here sooner rather than later, because if they do, I mean, there's a lot of potential where this thing can go. This team's going to go as far as Trubisky's going to take them. I think it's really easy to say that, and hopefully he's up for the challenge, because this defense, they're having a lot of fun. They're playing with a lot of, energy, tenacity, attitude, and I want to see that kind of get, rewarded here sometime or another this season. But let's go ahead and enter our 2-minute warning, wrap up our thoughts in this game, and put them into perspective moving forward. And Nick, over to you first. What's your 2-minute warning?
2-minute warning. It's pretty simple here. Mitch Trubisky needs to get better. And, I think we still need to give him time, but he can't be turning over the football. That cannot happen. These drives can't be continue going because of penalties, roughing the passer penalties. Obviously, that's part of the game, but a lot of their drives, were able to become scoring drives because penalties happen on those drives. You can't allow that to happen. Matt Nagy needs to be better as a play caller and, screen game. Yes, you can use it. Don't use it almost every other player. That's not going to, get you wins in this league, even though this is a good Cardinals defense. But the offense really needs to step their game up. And this is to be expected, though, from the offense early on in the season. And defense needs to keep doing what it's doing. I'm disappointed they didn't get their pick 6. Should have had it. That would have been 3 games in a row, but this defense is playing lights out. It is going to carry this football team, but eventually you want to see that offense not level out, because they're never going to get to the play of this defense this season, I think. And obviously that's really hard to do, but they still need to continue to get better each and every week. And it starts with Mitch. If he can be the quarterback that we all envision him to be, that Chicago hopes he can be, that Matt Nagy hopes he can be, this team is going to be very special. But we just got to wait until hopefully that happens.
And hopefully it does. Real quickly before my 2-minute warning, I forgot to kind of give the results of the poll on Twitter, just to let you know where other Bears fans are kind of grading this game. And out of over 1,000 votes, we have 57% give them a C. The next highest grade is at 24%, which was a B. So that's kind of where Bears fans are thinking, which I think if you average that out is the C+ B- area. So look at that. And for my 2-minute warning, and I'll start it off with, I don't feel bad for using the word resilient or resiliency too much. Coach Nagy just said to the Chicago media of his young Bears team that they're resilient, very resilient. So I'm thinking along the same lines as Coach here. So I think I'm in pretty good company. But regardless how you look at this, you can go to bed tonight smiling, knowing that the Bears are first place in the NFC North for the first time since 2013. They're above 500 for the first time since 2014. So even though there's some nitpicking going on, and I wouldn't even call it nitpicking, I think there's some obvious issues that we need to correct here in Chicago. I think you can still take pride of what the Bears have accomplished, so far this season. Where one, Kyle Fuller, interception away from being 3-0 on the year, which I don't think anyone would care how you got to 3-0, as long as you were ending up, being 3-0. And that's how I feel about being 2-1 right now. I don't mind this game was a little bit close. Maybe it was a little bit too close for comfort. Yeah. And I'm sure you feel the same way too, but a win's a win. And the good teams find a way to win the games, even if originally they were out of it. They find a way to come back. And it wasn't the prettiest of comebacks. We didn't come back and just destroy them, but we found a way to score just enough to come away to win this game. So for me, I'm not even going to go back through the stats. I'm not going to tell you just how, the offense needs to improve. We've talked about that in great length and just how great this defense is. This is a fun football team to watch, and sometimes they have you ripping out your hair, and other times they have you jumping up for joy. It depends on what side the football's on the field. No, but honestly, I'm excited to be a Bears fan again, and I think I have been, throughout all the years. But it feels good again. It feels good to look at the standings. I took a screenshot, like, look, we're first place in the NFC North. Look, we have a winning record, and honestly, we'll see where this thing goes. It can go up, it can go down, it can remain stagnant. But I think this Bears defense is going to, keep us in it this season. And I'm excited to see what the future holds. But today, the Bears did enough to win. And really, that's all that matters. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Brothers podcast. I want to thank you again for everyone here who is watching live. And that's going to wrap up our Bears Cardinals postgame show. Just in case you listen for how long it's been now, I don't have a timer in front of me, but the Bears did win 16-14, 2-1 on the year, first place in the NFC North. And next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is going to be a fun game, to say the least. I want to thank you all who are watching live. Really appreciate you. Thanks to Tristan. Thanks to Travis. And of course, our moderators over there, everyone partaking in the chat. And of course, to our thousands of podcast listeners throughout the entirety of the world, I want to thank you for tuning in. And we'll be back here in a couple days to meet the Buccaneers. But until then, enjoy your Victory Monday. And of course, bear down, Chicago.